We have got some automations in our accounts and settings in QuickBooks. So when we initially set our QuickBooks file up, they normally will be ticked with yes, and they will be forms of automation that you've got set within your QuickBooks file. So really here we're going to look at those automation settings initially set in QuickBooks. If I go to the gear in the top right here, and under your company in the first column, accounts and settings, we can go in there, and under the advanced section where all the exciting stuff happens, in advanced, if we switch into that section, you will see if you drop down automation as a heading here, and there are 3 different forms of automation you need to be aware of in your QuickBooks settings. So if I go to the little pencil mark here, quite usefully we've got little questions where it actually tells us what these particular automations do for us. The first one is one of my favorites. I do like this automation, but I know some people don't use it and don't like it because of the fear of duplication. But if I just click on the little question mark there, it tells you what that particular transaction does. So what that will do is, on a supplier customer, I use it a lot on bills. If I go into a bill, pick a supplier name, with this ticked, it will pre-fill the form with the previous entered content for that particular supplier. So if we have a look at that in action, you can see that that can be a time saver. So if I go and find a transaction that we've done in here in the past in terms of a bill, so you've got bills here for materials.co.uk, so that's one that we've done a bill for in the past. So if we did a new bill for materials by clicking on the plus sign here and entering the bill in, as soon as I pick materials here as my supplier name, it is going to populate the information in here with the last details for that particular supplier. So this is the last bill that we entered, as we saw on the screen. It's dated it today. It's not got a bill number in, so it's not populated everything in here, but it has populated the category, the amount, the VAT code. So I can then change the information I want to change and save it. Saves me time in picking the category again, the back code again. So it's a time saver, but obviously we've got to be careful. We don't want to just save this now again and it will be a duplication of a previous entry, perhaps with a different date but the wrong amount on it. So we want to be careful with duplication, but it is a time saver in terms of the fact that it does bring up the past information there. So I'm going to leave that without saving, and if we go back to our accounts and settings, we can have a look at the second setting on here that is automatically switched on as we go through in our advanced settings. So the first one is a potential time saver on pre-filling forms. The second one is automatically applying credits. But the thing to be aware of here is that this is not to do with credits on the supplier side. Again, if we go to the little question mark there, you can see it's referring to customers here. So this is basically saying if we put a credit note in for a customer and then we apply after that an invoice, with this setting on, it will automatically allocate that credit on that customer's account against the invoice we've just put in. So again, if we have a look at that as an example in here, we will be able to see a transaction of that nature. So I'm going to pick up on a transaction I did earlier on the invoice side. So here we have got a transaction for Greg. So this is an invoice that's in the system. This was put in after a credit note was in, and you can see here amount received, the actual 120 of the credit note has been automatically applied to an invoice when I created that invoice. It's automatically applied the payment here, and if I click on the one payment there, it's going to show me that that is a receipt linking the invoice and the credit note. So what's happening is that as we apply the credit note, it's not linked at all. As soon as we put the invoice in, the system will link them together. So if you don't want it to automatically link a credit to the invoice, you don't want that setting in your automations. And there is an actual warning. If I go back to those settings, there's a warning for companies that require deposits and like to keep deposits separately, not to use that particular setting because they want to keep that deposit separate. So if you go to the little marker here, you can see property managers securing deposits don't want to use that kind of functionality. But that's what that setting will do on an automated basis. And the final one, number 3 here, automatically apply bill payments. Again, can be confusing. That's nothing to do with credits that are on the account. And again, if you look at the description there, it's saying when you go into the account history within QuickBooks, if you apply a bill payment in that area, it will apply it to the oldest bill. It's unusual to apply bill payments through this account history area. I'll show you where that is in QuickBooks. I would say that it's very rare that somebody would apply a transaction in this way, but the main confusion is when somebody looks at that as an automation, quite often they're seeing that as being automatically applying credits to bills in QuickBooks. That isn't the case. What that's actually referring to is if I go to the chart of accounts in here, let's go and have a quick look in here, and I go to my bank account, so I'm going to go into this number 2 bank here. If I click on account history, the blue marker there, it gives me the bank register, and here I can add in different types of transaction. And what it's saying here is if I add in a bill payment, so if I pick bill payment here and I was to post in a transaction showing a payment to a supplier, it would automatically apply it to the oldest bill in the system. So again, if you like control, as I do, as to what's applied on the bill side to a particular transaction, then I would tend not to have that switched on in my automations. So those are the 3 automations in your accounts and settings under the advanced section that you need to be aware of when you're looking at your QuickBooks setup, and those automations are impacting on how things are operating within the program. So just check those within your file.